July 4th, 1856. As the nation lit the sky with fireworks and filled the air with speeches of freedom, a different story unfolded on a Georgia plantation. Beneath the vast branches of an ancient oak, a man in torn rags pulled a rope tight with scarred hands. His name was Joseph Carter, a slave with no liberty to celebrate. In the stillness of midnight, America's proudest holiday became a night of reckoning. The overseer who once cracked the whip now gasped for breath beneath the same stars that proclaimed liberty. On Independence Day, freedom spoke not through parades or speeches, but through the noose of a man denied it all. Joseph was born in chains. His first cry was not in a cradle but in a shack reeking of sweat, ash, and sorrow. His mother sang lullabies to mask the crack of lashes, but even her voice shook with fear. Childhood was not measured in toys or lessons, but in calloused hands and an empty stomach. The plantation was a split world. In the big house, chandeliers glowed, silver shone, silk gowns swayed. In the slave quarters, roofs leaked, dirt floors caved, and hunger lingered. The divide carved Joseph's vision. He learned silence was survival, that dreams unspoken lasted longer. Yet beauty clung in fragments. At dusk, his mother pointed out stars, whispering tales of ancestors stolen from far-off lands. The old oak at the field's edge became his confidant, its limbs stretching like open arms, a cathedral without walls. Beneath it, Joseph felt a fleeting breath of freedom, air unclaimed by masters. He grew tall and strong, but inwardly quiet. He memorized the rhythm of tools, the crack of an axe, the pull of rope, the grind of stone. Each sound imprinted itself, each skill preparing him for a purpose beyond labor. Others sang, Joseph observed. His eyes carried storms words could not hold. To be enslaved was to be unseen. Yet beneath that invisibility, Joseph gathered power. Every bruise was a lesson, every insult carved itself deep, and each night beneath the oak he whispered the same vow. One day silence will break. One day fire will come. Hope arrived gently. Her name was Elsie, another slave. Her laughter, rare but radiant, cut through Joseph's darkness. In stolen moments, whispers while carrying buckets, glances across the fields, they built fragile dreams. They spoke of freedom, of coins saved, of a life beyond fences. For the first time, Joseph believed patience might matter. Then came Asa Whitlock, overseer with false piety and an iron hand. He saw Elsie not as human, but as property. One night her cries split the quarters. By morning she was gone, sold south, like livestock. No farewell, no promise, only emptiness, heavy as death. The dream collapsed. Joseph returned to the oak, but its shade now felt cold. He remembered Elsie's words. Be patient, Joseph. Freedom will come. But freedom never came. Betrayal did. Violence did. And Joseph learned waiting meant losing everything. Where hope once lived, fury took root. The rope he hauled logs with looked like a weapon. The axe he swung became his will made solid. Silence itself sharpened into a blade. Joseph understood. Freedom was not given, it was taken. It would be carved from his own hands, paid for with blood. From that night, every step carried hidden fire. Outwardly he bowed, worked, obeyed. Inwardly, a vow burned. Asa Whitlock would pay. Those who profited from pain would answer. And when that day came, it would not whisper. It would thunder beneath the oak. Preparation began not in noise, but in stillness. Joseph studied Whitlock's steps, the way he paused before meals, where he kept his keys, how he patrolled. He noted the drunk overseer stumbling through nights, the young master's late wanderings, the cracks in their fortress of power. Knowledge became his weapon. Every chore became training. Splitting logs hardened his grip. Tying bundles of rope sharpened his sense of knots. Sharpening blades at the grindstone taught patience. Each act of forced labor rehearsed his own justice. The oak stood as his ally. By day it offered shade. By night it listened to his vow. He tested ropes there, felt their pull, heard fibers strain, its branches stretched like arms awaiting a different harvest. Others noticed the change. Some whispered. Joseph carried storms in his silence. Children avoided his gaze. The old prayed for him in secret, fearful of what fire he might unleash. But none spoke aloud. In the quarters, silence was survival. Asa Whitlock wore cruelty like a second skin. By day, he quoted scripture. By night, he prowled the quarters. His hands gripped both Bible and whip, twisting both into instruments of fear. The young master followed with arrogance, treating enslaved women as playthings. Behind him trailed cruel laughter. And the drunken overseer, a brute with no restraint, lashed at bodies not to enforce labor but to indulge rage. Together they formed a trinity of violence, greed, and hypocrisy. They built a wall around Joseph's life, stone by stone. Every lash, every stolen dignity pressed weight onto his chest. The oak tree witnessed it all, the blows, the cries, the lantern flickering across shacks like a predator's eye. For Joseph, each cruelty was no longer pain, it was evidence. A ledger carved in his bones. He whispered their names. Asa, the false saint, the young master, predator, the drunk, the beast. Their sins weighed heavy, and he would be their reckoning. The night came thick and breathless. Crickets fell silent, as if the world held its breath. Joseph moved like shadow. Rope coiled at his side, axe in hand. The oak loomed against the moonlight. The drunk overseer, staggering, bottle in hand, whip dragging. He believed fear protected him. He was wrong. The strike was swift, no warning, no speech. The axe fell, not in gore, but in sound, wood splitting, rope tightening, silence breaking. His grunt vanished into the dark. Joseph stood shaking, not with regret, but with the weight of beginning. The first strike is always hardest. The path ahead had no return. Blood was not painted, only suggested, a stain spreading like ink. The overseer, once master of the whip, now lay still as cotton in the field. Joseph whispered his name. The first verdict had been delivered. Momentum followed fear. Joseph no longer hesitated. Each act was ritual, each strike part of the vow. The young master was next, arrogant, careless, blinded by lust. Joseph cornered him in silence, speaking his name before the rope drew tight. Laughter died in his throat. Justice silenced him. Then the second overseer, Asa's ally, brute of violence. His whip cracked as Joseph approached, but the whip met. Boom. The struggle was sharp, brief, final. Again Joseph whispered a name. The oak received it like scripture rewritten. Each act came faster, not sloppy but certain. Joseph was no longer striking down men. He was conducting judgment. The oak became gallows, stars, and shadows, the witnesses. In their quarters, slaves woke to muffled sounds. Some prayed, some wept, some dared to smile in the dark. Fear for once turned toward masters. By dawn, the trinity of oppressors was broken. One name remained, Asa Whitlock. The man who had taken Elsie, who had carved pain into Joseph's soul. That night, the air was still. Joseph waited beneath the oak, rope in hand. His body ached, his eyes burned steady. Asa emerged from shadow, Bible tucked under his arm, pistol at his side, a sneer on his lips. "So it was you," he said, voice calm, too calm. "You think you can judge me? You think chains make you more than what you are?" Joseph did not answer. Words no longer held power. Only the rope spoke. The oak bent closer in the silence. Asa raised his pistol, steady as ever. He ordered Joseph to kneel. Joseph stepped forward instead, silent, certain. The pistol fired. The bullet grazed bark. Joseph lunged, seizing Asa's wrist. The pistol clattered to earth. They collided, fists and breath, strength against fury. The rope found its place, circling, tightening. Asa cursed, spat, thrashed. But Joseph's arms did not falter. For the first time, Asa's eyes showed fear. Scripture and law could not save him. Beneath the oak, judgment arrived. Joseph whispered a name, not Asa's, but Elsie's. Her ghost guided his hands. Her absence had carved this moment. The rope groaned, the oak creaked, and Asa Whitlock fell. For the first time, Joseph broke silence. He looked to the stars and released a sound. Neither laugh nor sob, but something jagged in between. Dawn revealed bodies swaying from branches. Whispers filled the fields. The oak stood heavy with its burden, a monument of rope and flesh. Joseph was found beneath it. Rope still in hand, eyes distant. He did not flee. He did not beg. He waited, dragged to jail, chains heavier than ever. He faced swift judgment. Guilty, condemned, death by hanging. The irony was cruel, the executioner in rags to be executed by rope. Through it all, Joseph stayed silent. Silence unsettled them, more than curses would have. On the morning of execution, crowds gathered, children on shoulders, women clutching shawls, men muttering about justice and order. Joseph looked beyond them all, gaze steady. When asked for final words, he spoke at last. Justice hangs higher than kings. The trapdoor fell. The rope snapped taut. Joseph swung against the morning sky, framed by the same heavens he once gazed at as a boy beneath the oak. The crowd gasped, then stilled. What hung there was not just a man, but a question. The overseers were gone. The oak still stood. Joseph Carter was gone, but not forgotten. His body was punishment. His silence was message. The masters tried to turn his act into warning. This is what happens when order is broken. But in the quarters, whispers spread like embers. Men and women who once bowed their heads dared to lift their eyes, even briefly. They could not cheer, but at night, some traced Joseph's name into the dirt. Others whispered Elsie's. They remembered not just vengeance but stolen love. Overseers were replaced. New whips cracked. New masters preached order, yet shadows lingered. Every coiled rope recalled Joseph Carter. Every hymn hummed at dusk carried his ghost. For masters, he was tragedy. For slaves, prophecy. His death revealed two truths, that resistance demanded heavy price, and that resistance was possible. Children grew hearing fragments of the tale. The man in rags, they called him. Some feared the story. Others held it like a shield. Either way it lived. The oak did not forget, nor did those who walked beneath. Time turned to decades. War came. Slavery ended by blood on battlefields. Laws changed. Chains broke, but wounds remained. Joseph Carter's name was never etched in stone or textbooks. Yet his story survived, in whispers, in songs, in sermons that spoke of justice without naming him. Among descendants, his memory burned like fire, passed as caution, prayer, reminder, even the silent can roar. Joseph Carter never wore a crown, never stood in a courtroom, never tasted freedom in the way others would. Yet his act, born in silence and carried in fury, became more than revenge. It became a symbol, and symbols are dangerous. They outlive flesh. Masters tried to bury him with chains, gallows, and silence. But silence is not absence. Silence is memory held close. Generations later, the oak still stands, scarred, weathered, rooted. Travelers sometimes feel a chill beneath its branches, as though hearing rope creak in the wind. The tree carries two truths. It bore injustice, and it bore judgment, and so reflection lingers. What is justice? Is it written by courts or carved by calloused hands? Is it voiced by kings or whispered by a man who refused to kneel? Joseph Carter died in rags, but rags can hold dignity. He died a slave, yet in his final act, he was freer than those who claimed to own him. His story asks us to confront the contradiction of freedom, celebrated by some while denied to others. The executioner in rags is gone, but his question remains, and it hangs higher than kings.